Greetings, students from Systematic Theology 1. I'm Peter Wright. For those of you that don't remember or recognize me on the camera, I'm the TA for Brother Norris in this class. And I wanted to address a few issues or topics that have come up over the past few weeks on the discussion posts that we've been posting each week. There's been a few reoccurring issues that I have realized that they need a little more explanation. Maybe I'm not being clear enough, or maybe the little box in which I have to leave comments isn't enough space for me to answer these questions. So I'm going to take a little bit of time. This is just going to be a few-minute video and hopefully give you a little more insight into what these assignments are calling for. So the first problem is actually a very simple one. If you look at the rubric for these discussion posts, for these assignments, the final topic, the final category, if you will, is simply that you leave a question at the end of your discussion post. You just ask a question, you throw it out there, and you don't answer this question. You simply end your post with a question, and the purpose of this is to invite discussion. This part of these posts, seeing as they are discussion posts, is to get yourselves in conversation with each other, to share your ideas, to share your thoughts, and hopefully grow and learn one from another. So that's an easy one. Just please remember to finish your post with a question. If there's no question there, then I have to take points off just because that's a part of the assignment. So just put a question at the end. It can be simple. It doesn't have to be deep or immensely theological, anything like that. It can be rather simple, and that would be just fine. The second thing that I have found reoccurring is the SBL formatting. Now, I understand SBL is new to many of you. Maybe you've never even heard of SBL. It's the Society of Biblical Literature. This is actually the handbook, second edition. It is about that thick, and it gives you all the lovely requirements. And this is a little more daunting than it looks. I don't know how well you can see all this, but it gives you all the different requirements of how you're supposed to cite your sources correctly. Now, what's really handy about this book is, I should have looked this up before I started recording, but there's a page in here, a few pages in here that give examples of how you're supposed to cite specific sources. So if it's a book with a single author, if it's a chapter in a book, if it's a journal article, it will tell you how to cite these things. And this is important for a few reasons. One, it's important in the proximate future because your paper is required to be written in SBL formatting. And again, this is worth its weight in gold. I bought this my first class at UGST, and I've used it ever since. I'm still using it today. I still rely on this book, so it is worth, I'm not actually sure how much it's going for on Amazon, but it is worth it. It will save you a lot of headache and heartache in the future. So it's important in the proximate future. But if you decide to go on and participate in the scholarly circles with your writing, this is one of the most widely accepted formatting. There are others. There are other ways to format. This is one of the most widely accepted formats that there are. And so that will help you both in the proximate future and the distant future if you so choose to go on with your scholarly studies and endeavors. And then the final one, and I think the most severe that I'm seeing, is the lack of a thesis statement. Now, I've spoken to a few of you personally on the phone or through email, and I remember coming into UGST, and I even went to Urshan College, and they required thesis statements there, and some of the papers, I was a Christian ministry major, so I had to write theology papers, so I was sort of used to SBL and things like that. But UGST really bore down on this idea that we need a thesis statement. And what this is, it's not simply telling me what your post is going to be about. It's not even simply giving me an outline of what you're going to talk about. It is a claim that you are making. It is an assertion that you are making about the subject, about the topic at hand. You are making a claim, and then the rest of your post should be, you should be going about proving that claim. So I have a couple examples. This is one from our lovely professor, Brother Norris, and thesis statements can take shape in a few different ways. So this is one written sort of into the writing, if that makes sense, but you can tell that it's a thesis statement. And then I will actually read my thesis statement from my master's thesis, which is a little more obvious, and I would call it a little more blocky. It's not as pretty. So Brother Norris writes, he says, in the last decade, Oneness Pentecostalism has arguably grown from 15 to 25 million adherents, largely an indigenous growth that shows little sign of abating. Still, most academics have focused little on what Oneness Pentecostals really believe, and those who study the movement have often viewed the oneness perspective through a faulty lens. This is a claim. This is Brother Norris saying scholars and academics have got it wrong. This is actually page 1, chapter 1 of I Am. He says scholars have got it wrong, and even the ones who have tried to talk about Oneness Pentecostalism have looked through a faulty lens at it, and they've messed it up too. And the rest of the book goes about doing two things, really proving that they got it wrong, but it does so by explaining what Oneness Pentecostals actually believe. And he actually makes this statement a little later. He says this book builds while it deconstructs, but it's all driven by that initial claim that scholars have got it wrong, and now he seeks to right it. That's his claim. So the examples that I've been giving in the little boxes on the rubric is that in this post, I argue that. That's sort of the simplest form that I can give, and that's actually sort of what I do. This is my master's thesis. I don't know if you can see this. That's probably backwards or upside down. Hopefully got it right in there somewhere. I'm not sure. But it's called Nero's Parody. And so I go on about, I wrote on the book of Revelation, and I did cultural analysis. I looked at cultural things that were present in the first century, that the language made it into the book of Revelation. And so this is my formula. I said, this thesis asserts, so this is my claim, this thesis asserts that John's use of parody, employing Nero-esque imagery, is present within the closing scenes of the apocalypse and is not solely confined to the Christological parody observed by many scholars. And so that is my claim. This thesis asserts this. And so I'm not simply telling you I'm gonna look at first century history. I'm gonna study Roman history. I'm gonna study different apocalypses and apocalyptic genre. I didn't tell you what I was going to do. That actually comes after your thesis statement, after your claim. You make your claim, and then you give your methodology about how you're going to go about proving that claim. I'm going to defer now to Brother Norris because I've probably left more questions to be asked, but I hope that this video in some way has been helpful and hopefully to give a little more clarity to the rest of the discussion posts. I look forward to reading them. I do read them. I enjoy them. I learn from them. So I look forward to reading those, and I look forward, if I can, to also discussing with you in those posts. So hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye.